What does the future hold for the war in Ukraine? The conflict has been going on for more than 1,000 days. But with Donald Trump now entering the White House, Keir Starmer now in Downing Street, the calculations are different. The dynamics of this war could shift dramatically. What lies ahead for Ukraine, the West, and the global order? Let's dive in. To understand where this war might go, we need to first understand how it started. The roots of this conflict stretch back decades, but the flashpoints that led to the current war began in 2014. That year, Russia annexed Crimea. It was viewed as a big success in Russia. Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader, saw his popularity soar after the bold land grab, and it set the scene for what we saw in 2022. Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
He framed it as a special military operation to denazify Ukraine and protect Russian-speaking populations. But most of the world saw it as an unprovoked act of aggression aimed at asserting Russian dominance. Since then, Ukraine, under President Volodymyr Zelensky, has mounted a fierce defense, aided by billions of dollars of Western military aid. US-supplied rocket systems, European tanks and drones have all been critical in blunting Russian advances. But the human cost has been staggering.
The number of people killed is rising as Russian troops continue to advance across the country.
Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians have died, millions displaced, and cities reduced to rubble. Meanwhile, the West has faced its own challenges: rising energy costs, inflation, and political divisions over how much support to provide. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying the video, please hit like and subscribe. We're a brand new channel and we're close to 1,000 subscribers. So if you can hit that button, it'll make a huge difference. With different world leaders now in place compared to 2022, things could be a little different.
The Fox News Decision Desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
Donald Trump's approach to Ukraine is likely to differ to that of Joe Biden. While Biden has been a staunch supporter of Ukraine, providing tens of billions in military aid, Trump has signaled he would push for negotiations, possibly at Ukraine's expense. There's also been a suggestion of slowing down or even stopping US military aid. Trump has argued that Europe should take the lead in supporting Ukraine, and he's expressed skepticism about the war's importance to US interests. In his first term, Trump repeatedly criticized NATO, suggesting that the US was carrying too much of the financial burden. He even hinted at withdrawing from the alliance.
I have been very direct in saying that NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations.
This could put enormous pressure on Ukraine. Western weapons have been crucial to its plans to launch a counteroffensive, and a reduction in support could limit its ability to retake occupied territories. However, Trump's unpredictability is a wildcard. He could use his rapport with Putin to broker a peace deal, but whether that would favor Ukraine is a big question.
I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship and they respect your president, okay?
Across the Atlantic, Keir Starmer is now the Prime Minister in the UK, and he's got a huge majority. Starmer has vowed to maintain Britain's support for Ukraine while strengthening ties with Europe.
We stand with you for as long as it takes, with whatever it takes, until victory.
Under Starmer, the UK is likely to remain a major supplier of arms to Ukraine. British-made Storm Shadow missiles and Challenger 2 tanks have already played a key role on the battlefield. But there are domestic pressures. The UK is grappling with economic challenges, and some critics may question the high costs of military aid. Balancing these pressures while maintaining a strong stance on Ukraine will be a test of Starmer's leadership, especially if the US reduces support and the UK is expected to plug the gap. So what does the future hold? There could be a negotiated settlement. In this scenario, Trump pushes for peace talks, pressuring Ukraine to make territorial concessions to Russia. Starmer and European leaders might try to ensure that any deal respects Ukraine's sovereignty, but a compromise could leave Kyiv dissatisfied. While this might end the fighting, it risks emboldening Russia and undermining the rules-based international order. Another option is that the stalemate could continue. Trump scales back US aid, but Europe, led by Starmer and others, step up. The conflict drags on, with neither side able to achieve a victory. Then there's the possibility of escalation. If Trump's disengagement emboldens Putin, we could see renewed offensives, and this might force NATO to respond directly, escalating the conflict. That risks a wider war, which would be significant. But why does this matter anyway? Why do we spend so much time talking about Ukraine? Well, initially the West was more or less united in its support for Ukraine, and there was a lot of talking about defending the principles of sovereignty and democracy. Allowing Russia to succeed would set a dangerous precedent for other authoritarian regimes around the world. Then there was the issue of NATO. Russia's aggression had revitalized the alliance. Countries like Sweden and Finland wanted to now join. The war has forced NATO to reevaluate its position and its strategy and invest in collective defense. And finally, the war has massive economic implications. Funding Ukraine has not been cheap, and Western nations have had to make significant sacrifices. But the war itself has also disrupted global food and energy supplies, as Ukraine is a major grain exporter and Russia is a key energy supplier. The resulting instability has impacted countries far beyond Europe, and we've all seen it in our bills and costs. The future of the war in Ukraine is anything but certain. With Donald Trump back in the White House and Keir Starmer in Downing Street, the global response could shift in unexpected ways. Will we see peace, a prolonged stalemate, or even escalation? Whatever happens, the consequences will be felt far beyond Ukraine's borders. The world is watching, and history is being written.